I've had a lot of people recently who have asked me how easy it is to set up a YouTube channel and how much money I make from it. And I'll be completely honest with you, I do make money from YouTube, but I don't make enough to live on. There are a lot of films on YouTube actually that you can look at that give you advice on how to get started, on how much money you can make. But they tend to be made by people who've got 50,000 subscribers or 100,000 subscribers, and they're getting 500,000 views for every film they make, that type of person. And I'm not really in that category. I'm still only on just over 4,000 subscribers. The number of views I get are very, very, very variable depending on the type of film I make. I think the film I've made that's had the most views had about 300,000 views, but it's not common for me to get more than a few hundred views, sometimes a few thousand, it depends what it is. Some of my more lucrative films have got maybe 40 or 50,000 views. And as you might already realise, it's not just the number of views that determines how much money you make. I mean, for example, I do have one film that had over 300,000 views. It's football related, but it hasn't actually made a massive amount of money. And the film I've made that's made the most money only had 50,000 views. And the difference is because the film that I made that had a lot more views is on a subject that gets paid a much lower RPM, which is basically how YouTube decide how to pay you, how the advertisers decide basically, because it's in the hands of the advertisers. They're the ones that decide how much they want to pay. So a film, for example, of a group of football fans chanting and singing at a football match is probably only going to get 4 or 5 pence per 1,000 views. Whereas if you make a film about doing tax for your company, which I do that kind of thing as well, company advice, business advice, that gets a much, much, much higher RPM. So I get a lot more money for making a film about business or about taxation or about finance than what I'd get with some of my football or music films. So how did I get started in the first place? Well, I started over 15 years ago, which is a long time ago really. But I just started out as a hobby really. Nearly all my early uploads were football related, rugby related, or music related. I support quite a few different football teams actually. I regularly go to a lot of football matches. I go to about 50 football matches every year, and I started just recording goals and recording penalties and recording crowd scenes, that type of thing, and uploading them just as a hobby, not with any intention of making any money. And also if I went to a rock concert, I'd record a couple of songs, put them up on YouTube. And around that time I'd got about 400 subscribers, and I was only really picking up about 3 or 4 new subscribers every month, but I wasn't bothered because it was a hobby. I was just doing it just for the fun of it. And at that time I wasn't monetized, so wasn't making any money at all out of YouTube. Obviously now I am making money from YouTube. The first thing you need to know, and you probably already know this if you're thinking of starting a YouTube channel, is you've got to get 1,000 subscribers in order to become monetized. It's not just 1,000 subscribers. It is actually possible, if you know where to look, to actually buy subscribers, and I strongly advise you not to even consider that, because if YouTube find out, you will get banned. But apart from that, it's a really stupid thing to do, because it's not just about the number of subscribers. You need 1,000 subscribers, but you also need a particular number of watch hours in order to become monetized. So what that means effectively is that even if you've got a lot of subscribers, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can monetize your channel. You have to have the watch hours as well. So if you just buy subscribers, which some people try to do, if you look on some sort of dodgy sites on the internet, there are places where they'll kind of, you pay them and they'll subscribe, you know, these sort of fake accounts. If you do that, not only could you get banned by YouTube, but worse still, you might still not be able to monetize if you're not getting enough watch time. So first of all, don't try and trick the system. Whatever you do need to get 1,000 subscribers, and they have to be real subscribers. And the funny thing is, I found it incredibly difficult to get up to 1,000 subscribers. That's something that, I mean, it took me, I think it was about 12 years to get from 0 to 1,000 subscribers. Now, to be fair, it took that long because I wasn't really trying. For the first 7 or 8 years that I was doing YouTube, it was just a hobby, and I had no intention of monetizing anyway. It was just football films, rugby films, a bit of music. It was just stuff for my friends, really, more than anything. If I went to a football match with a group of friends, I'd like record a penalty or whatever, and it was just so that people could watch it again. So it was more just a bit of fun for me and my friends to look back at. It was only really after I'd been doing it about 10 years, and I was getting, I think I got to about 800 subscribers, and I thought, I could actually just get a few hundred more subscribers and I could monetize. And that's when I started taking it a bit more seriously and taking various actions to increase my number of subscribers and get up to 1,000. So that first 1,000 took me about 10 years. But after that, well, I've now got over 4,000, and it's going up exponentially. So by the time you watch this, I might have 1,000 more subscribers than, I mean, at the moment it's 4,000, it might be 5,000, it might be 10,000 by the time you watch this film. But the point I'm making is, once you hit that magic 1,000, it is much, much easier to keep going forward and increasing, and it does grow exponentially. There's no doubt at all. You just got to get that first 1,000 to begin with, but you also have to have the correct number of watch hours, and that actually is changing all the time. So just have to, rather than me tell you, have a look on YouTube yourself and you'll find out what the current figure is. But you need the minimum number of watch hours as well as those 1,000 subscribers. Now, the next thing you need to know, really important point, is that if you want to stay motivated, if you want to actually keep going, the hardest part is that first bit of getting the 1,000 subscribers, and a lot of people give in before they actually get to 1,000. What I've found is, once people hit 1,000 and you fill in all the forms, you have to fill in all sorts of forms, by the way. It's not that simple. They don't just suddenly monetize it. You have to fill in a lot of paperwork, and that includes stuff related to taxation. If you're based in the UK, as I am, you have to fill out all sorts of tax related stuff for the American government as well, so that you're not paying tax in the USA. But once you get past 1,000, it is just so motivating, because even if you're only making a very small amount of money, it just kind of motivates you to try much harder. And I think that's why most people are like me. I think that's why most people really struggle to get to that first 1,000, because it's quite hard to motivate yourself. But once you get past 1,000 and you're basically getting some money coming in, paid into your bank account every month, then you do feel a lot more motivated to make more effort. The big advice I would give people to begin with, the first major piece of advice, if you do want to be a YouTuber that makes money, is do something that you enjoy doing. And this is the one big mistake that so many people make. They try to think of an idea for a YouTube channel, they try to think of an idea for their niche that they think will make money, rather than something that interests them, something that they're passionate about. All the very best YouTube channels, the ones that are visually the best, the ones that are most successful, are the ones where the person who's doing it has basically chosen a subject that they're really interested in, that they're really passionate about, that they really, really care about. Because at the end of the day, I've got to give you this news, it's bad news, but the chances of you ever making enough money from YouTube to live off is almost zero. I don't intend to ever try to get that far, and I'm not particularly bothered, because I have lots of other sources of income. I'm not doing YouTube for the money anyway. If I didn't make any money out of YouTube, it would make virtually zero difference to my financial situation. So any money I do make is basically, it's just quite a nice little earner, to be perfectly honest. It's just a nice little bit of pocket money. And my advice to you really is, don't ever expect to make a full-time living out of YouTube. Because firstly, if you do try to, you'll be sadly disappointed, and then you'll lose motivation. But also, if you try to turn it into a full-time occupation, you are probably almost definitely going to be worse off than if you just spend that time doing a job. Because even the people, the big-time YouTubers who do it full time as a kind of an occupation, they're making, if they're lucky, and I mean I've looked into this, if they're lucky they're making maybe 20, 30, if they're very lucky, £40,000 a year. If you're in America, you know, like sort of $50,000, $60,000, and they're the really big time people, you know, the really famous people. They're the 1%. And to be totally honest with you, the amount of work involved, the amount of effort to just make that amount of money, most people can earn something like that just working in a supermarket or a factory or something like that. You don't have to spend 70 or 80 hours a week doing YouTube to make a tiny amount of money. So I think my first thing is don't treat it like something that's ever going to be a full-time occupation, because it isn't, to be perfectly honest, unless you're incredibly lucky and get into that 1%. Otherwise, treat it like a hobby and treat it like a nice little earner, you know, just a nice bit of extra pocket money. It'll pay for a few holidays. I spend all the money I make on camera equipment and lighting equipment, and basically I've spent a few thousand recently. I've just had a separate bank account I set up to put my money in, and when it gets to a certain level I draw the money out and I just buy a new posh camera or whatever. That's what I do with the money, because I don't really need it to live off anyway. The second bit of advice I'd give you, first bit of advice is do something that you're passionate about, do something you enjoy, because you're never going to ever turn it into a full-time income. Second piece of advice I would give you is don't make films that are too long to begin with, because it's all about audience retention and time retention to begin with. And I think this is a massive mistake that a lot of people make. They make and I made this mistake myself. I was uploading films that were about half an hour long, and I was getting a reasonable number of views. But if people click on that film and they only watch the first 2 or 3 minutes of a 30-minute film, then the YouTube algorithms absolutely hate that. They absolutely hate it, and that's going to go against you. So what you need to do is begin by recording short films. When I say short films, I don't mean shorts as in the type of stuff that, you know, lasts 1 minute and stupid stuff, dogs dancing or people farting for a minute, or, you know, to get 100,000 views. That sort of rubbish. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about films that lasted maybe 3 or 4 minutes. I think is about the sweet spot. If you do something really interesting that lasts about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and if people watch that right to the end, or watch 90% of it, the YouTube algorithms are going to absolutely love that, and they're going to keep recommending you. And as you keep getting recommended, then you'll get more and more views, more and more subscribers, and you build up your channel that way. If you make the mistake that I made and start by uploading 30-minute films, and even if you get a lot of views, even if you get quite a high viewing figure, if people are only watching 2 minutes of a 30-minute film, then the YouTube algorithms will really punish you for it. So I would say in the early days, even if you intend to make longer films later on, in the early days, keep your films as short as possible and keep them down to 3 or 4 minutes. Now, YouTube do something called Shorts, which is a little bit like TikTok. TikTok is something I've never even been a member of TikTok, to be honest, let alone, I've never even looked on it. I'm not interested at all. But YouTube are doing similar sort of things now, where you can do these what are called shorts, which last about a minute or so. They make virtually no money whatsoever. I mean, literally virtually no money. They are good in terms of driving subscribers to your channel. So if in the early days you're just trying to get as many subscribers as possible to hit that magic 1,000, then doing YouTube shorts can be a really good thing, as long as the short does lead people onto your normal channel with your normal films, so that you can get more and more and more subscribers. So it is good from that point of view. From the point of view of making money, it's completely useless. Don't even bother making shorts if you want to make money out of it. But it is quite good to get views and to get subscribers. Another piece of advice I'd give people when they're starting out is don't assume that more views or more subscribers necessarily means more money. Now, to give an example, my most watched film is a film which I filmed it about, gosh, must be about 10 years ago now, thinking about it. I don't know exactly when it was, but it was at a football match between Millwall in South London and Leicester City. And at the time, Leicester were champions of the Premier League and Millwall were in the division below, and they drew them in the FA Cup. And I went along to the game. And I was in the area of the ground where a lot of the hooligans go. And at the end of the game, Millwall won. They scored very late on, won the game. People were incredibly excited. There was a massive, absolutely massive pitch invasion. It was absolute delirium, as you can imagine. And I filmed the whole lot, put it on YouTube, and I've lost track of how many views. I think I've had about 500,000 views of that film now, and I got a lot of subscribers as a result of it. But the weird thing is, even though that is by far my most watched film, I didn't actually make much money from it at all. I think I've made about 100 quid or 150 pounds in total from a film that's had that many views over many years. The film that's made me the most money by far is a film about how to do your accounts for Companies House when you're running a business. Because in my normal life, in my non-YouTube life, I run several quite successful businesses, and that's how I live. That's how I make my money, my day-to-day money. So I thought I'd start making a few films about how to fill in forms for Companies House, how to do your tax bills, that kind of thing. Some of them have only had about 5,000, 10,000 views, but they've made me a lot of money, believe it or not, despite only having a few views. And the reason for that is because of something called RPM, which is rate per mil, which is basically the amount of money you get per 1,000 views. And the rates are all completely different. You may already know about this, but if you don't, just to give you a very, very brief summary of how it works, advertisers are prepared to pay different amounts of money for different subject matters, for different niches. And the type of niches that do make a lot of money are personal finance, running companies, anything to do with tax, anything to do with investments, technology, anything to do with buying high-end equipment. So, for example, product reviews. But when I say product reviews, I don't mean product reviews of baked beans. I mean, if, for example, you review a really expensive piece of camera equipment or computer equipment or some high-tech gadget, that type of thing, they tend to make a lot of money. The things that don't make much money are things like sport, music. In fact, in many cases, music makes nothing at all, because if you are, for example, filming a band in concert, then what tends to happen, what almost always does happen, is that the copyright publishers will claim the copyright, which means you don't actually get into trouble. YouTube don't strike you for that. You don't actually get into trouble with YouTube, but any fee, any money you make from it, goes to the copyright holder. And I've had that in many cases. I've done films, music films, that have actually had loads of views, and I haven't made a penny because it's claimed by the copyright holder. This happens almost all the time. There's an AI system which will automatically trigger. So if you for example, you go to a concert, a favourite band, you record one of their songs, you upload it on YouTube. Within less than a week, the AI system will have spotted it and will inform the copyright owners, and 99 times out of 100 they will want the money from it. So uploading music films, it's a bit of fun, and it might get you a few extra subscribers, but you won't make any money out of it. So if you do want to just do YouTube for making money, then it's things like personal finance, it's business, it's technology, it's that kind of stuff. The trouble is, if you do that just for that reason and no other reason, then you're going to run into big trouble, because for a start, if you're not an expert in that area, then it will show, and people will know that you're just doing it to make money. There are a lot of people actually out there who do this. They'll start like a personal finance channel advising people on pensions and investments, and it just shows immediately. You can just tell that they've just read something in a magazine and they're making a film about something they know absolutely nothing about, just because they know that is going to make them the most money on YouTube. And people do realise very early on what people are up to, and it's going to go against you in the longer term. You might fool some of the people some of the time, but pretty soon you will get found out. The other reason you shouldn't do it is because if it's something you're not interested in, then you're not going to enjoy it and you won't stay motivated, and so eventually you'll just give in. I'm I suppose in a lucky position that my films are, well, certainly all my newer films, all the films I've been doing over the last 2 years, have been on the subject of business and finance related to business and running a business, and that does tend to have a very good RPM figure, so you don't have to have that many views to make a good amount of money if you're making business advice films. But, and this is the important thing, it's something I know a lot about, and it's also something that I'm very, very interested in and passionate about. So I feel motivated to do it. I mean, some of the recent films I've made, I've had literally 50, 60 views. Some of them have had 100 views, and that's it. And I've made a very small amount of money out of it. But I don't care, because it's something I'm interested in anyway, and I like helping people. And I often get really, really positive comments, people thanking me. Somebody the other week called me a legend. They said I'd helped them so much, I was a legend. And the actual film itself, I actually made no money from it, but just that kind of feeling of helping somebody and getting that thanks is enough for me. I don't actually need the money, so I'm not too bothered. But that is a big thing. You really do need to choose a subject that you're passionate about, and don't just assume that the number of views you get is going to determine how much money you make. The best thing you can possibly do, and I know this is something which a lot of people watching this, probably it's advice that they're not going to take, but my best advice I would say is forget about the money. Just don't do it for the money. If you make some money, then great. You know, it's wonderful. Even if you're only making 100 quid a month or something as low as that, obviously you're not going to live off it, but it is a really nice feeling every month to look at your bank statement, and it gets paid in, and it'll say from Google Ireland. That's what it says on your bank statement, Google Ireland, because that's where it's getting paid from. And it's just nice, even if you're only getting like 100 quid, it is a nice feeling to get that money every month, because you feel you're getting paid for doing something you enjoy. But the main advice I'd give anyone who wants to start a YouTube channel is don't expect to make any money at all. If you do make any, it's a bonus. Make sure that whatever you do, it's something that you're passionate about, something that you're really interested in. Make sure it's a subject that you enjoy, that you're going to get pleasure from making the film, regardless of whether you make any money from it. And the final bit of advice I would give people really is just to be consistent. I know that this is a cliched bit of advice that a lot of people give on YouTube, but it's actually really good advice, and that's about being consistent. You need to set yourself a target of how many films you're going to upload and just keep uploading them. It's a bit like buying a national lottery ticket. I mean, I'm not suggesting people I've never done the national lottery. I think it's a waste of money, but if you do want to win it, you can't just sort of buy one national lottery ticket and expect to win. You have to do it week in, week out, just literally every week buy a ticket, and then maybe in about 50 years time you might actually win the national lottery. But the principle is the same with YouTube, that you can be literally uploading films week after week after week, and just get 20 views, 30 views, 100 views, and that's it. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, totally unexpectedly, you'll get 10,000 views. But you'll only get that if you are totally consistent, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. I'll give you one quick example before I go. I mentioned earlier that I support several different football teams. One of them is Manchester City. I go regularly to the Etihad Stadium to watch Manchester City. They're not my main team. I support another football team as well, but I am a regular Manchester City supporter, and they've been building a new stand, which every game I go to, I film it just for my own personal interest. I film the building work, and I've been uploading these films onto YouTube, and about the first 4 that I uploaded, I got about 50 views, and then completely out of the blue, I got about 10,000 views within the space of 2 days for one of my films. And it didn't make any sense at all, because all these films are the same. It's just building work at the Etihad Stadium. So I can't explain it. But just one week I'd upload a film of building work at the Etihad, and I'd 30 views. And then the following week, for no reason, got nearly 10,000 views. And the films are almost identical. I can't explain it, but what I can deduce from that is that you have to be consistent and keep doing it. And if something fails, just kind of think, okay then, well that failed, but I'm still going to upload, I'm going to keep going. The main reason that your YouTube channel will not be successful is because you just stop doing it. That is the brutal advice. You do have to keep working at it, you have to keep uploading, you have to be consistent. And if one week a film that you upload has very few views, just keep going, keep doing it. Be consistent, set yourself a target of whatever that may be, whatever's reasonable for you. For some people it's upload a film every day. For me, I aim where possible to upload a film once a week. I think any more than that, my films would lose their quality. Sometimes people only upload once a month, but you have to set your own target. But whatever that target is, be consistent and keep doing it. And just don't expect to make big money out of YouTube, because honestly you won't. You may make a few £100 a month, I don't know, you might even make a few £1,000 a month eventually, but it is a long hard slog. And the only way you're going to get over that slog is if you are prepared to make films about something that you enjoy as a hobby and see the money as secondary. I hope that's been useful. If you have any questions at all, please just feel free to shove them in the box below, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. As I've said many times in this film and also on my channel, I don't do this for the money anyway, so I've nothing to sell, I've got no kind of hidden motives, I've got no merchandise, nothing like that. If you could just subscribe to my channel, like, share, just interact, I'd be really grateful. But I'm not doing it for the money. My biggest advice to you is don't do it for the money, do it because you enjoy doing it. And if the money does start rolling in, then so much the better, fantastic. But don't make that your primary motive. Thanks for watching. My name's Darren Bugg. Until next time, I hope you're successful in whatever you do. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon.